Welcome. If you're looking to really get to grips with major historical events, understand the key turning points without drowning in endless detail, well, you're in the right place.
That's what we aim for here, taking the sources and pulling out the core stuff so you get a clear picture.
And today we're doing a deep dive into those critical moments right before Jesus' crucifixion based on this narrative account we have. Our mission really is to unpack these pivotal events, get under the skin of them, and see what they tell us.
And it kicks off with this really striking sense of impending doom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus just tells his disciples straight up.
Yeah, no messing around. He says, look, Passover's in 2 days, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified.
It's incredibly direct, very blunt, actually. Leaves no doubt about what he believes is coming.
And almost in the next breath, we see the opposition mobilizing, right? The chief priests, the elders, they're meeting secretly.
Yes, at Caiaphas' place, the high priest. They're already plotting how to arrest him quietly and, well, kill him.
But the timing is tricky for them. They decide not during the feast. Why? Why the hesitation about the timing?
Well, it seems like crowd control, really. Passover meant Jerusalem was packed.
Yeah.
Super crowded.
Right, pilgrims everywhere.
Exactly. And arresting someone like Jesus, who clearly had a following, well, they were worried it might, spark a riot or major unrest. It shows how tense things were politically.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. Then the narrative shifts, and we get this really fascinating scene, the anointing at Bethany.
Yes. Jesus is at Simon's house, Simon the leper, as the text calls him, and this woman comes in.
With this sealed jar, alabaster, right? Full of incredibly expensive perfume, and she just pours it on his head while he's eating.
It's a bold move.
Yeah.
And the disciples, they aren't happy.
No, they're actually described as angry, indignant even, calling it a waste.
Their argument is, practical. This perfume could have been sold, lots of money given to the poor.
It sounds reasonable on the surface, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Helping the poor. Was it purely about the money, do you think, or something else?
Well, the text frames it economically. But it could also show they weren't quite grasping what was happening,
Yeah.
Compared to this woman's very personal, maybe symbolic gesture, they're thinking pragmatically.
And Jesus' reaction is, well, it's quite something. He jumps to her defense.
He does. He calls it a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And connects it directly to his death.
Right. He says she did it to prepare him for burial. That's heavy.
Very. And he even says, wherever the good news is preached, what she's done will be told in memory of her. He elevates it. Completely reframes it.
It gives you chills, almost. The sense of destiny playing out, the contrast between the disciples thinking about money and Jesus seeing it as preparation for death.
Absolutely. It deepens that theme of foreshadowing we saw earlier.
But then the mood just plummets, doesn't it? We turn straight to Judas.
Judas Iscariot, one of the 12. It's stark. He goes to the chief priests.
And basically asks, what will you give me if I hand him over to you?
And they settle on a price. 30 pieces of silver.
Just like that. It feels so cold, so calculated. And the text makes a point of saying, from then on, Judas watched for an opportunity.
Yeah. He's actively looking for the right moment to betray him.
What drives someone to do that? One of the inner circle. The text doesn't really spell out his motives, does it?
No, it doesn't. Which is why there's been centuries of speculation, hasn't there? Some theories suggest maybe disillusionment, like Jesus wasn't the political messiah Judas expected.
Or maybe just greed. The 30 silver coins.
That's another possibility. Or maybe some even argue he thought he was somehow forcing Jesus' hand, pushing him towards his destiny. We just don't know for sure from this account.
Okay, so Judas is now looking for his chance. The scene shifts again. It's time for the Passover meal, the Last Supper.
And Passover itself is hugely significant, right? It's the commemoration of the Israelites' liberation from Egypt, freedom from slavery, a massive event in Jewish history.
Full of tradition. And Jesus specifically tells his disciples where to go, to a certain man in the city.
With a specific message. The teacher says, "My appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house." It's very intentional.
He's setting the stage.
Absolutely. Placing this final meal within the Passover context links everything Jesus is about to do with that history of liberation. It sort of foreshadows a new kind of liberation.
So they're all there, reclining at the table, and Jesus just drops this bombshell.
Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me.
Imagine hearing that. The shock, the sadness, and they all start asking him, one by one.
Surely you don't mean me, Lord. You can feel the distress. They can't believe it could be one of them.
It shows how tight that group was, or seemed to be. Their disbelief is palpable.
Yeah, and it highlights their individual connection to him. But then Judas asks too.
Right. Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi.
Jesus' answer.
Yeah.
It's quiet, almost cryptic. You have said so. It's like this private confirmation just between them.
Chilling. And then, in the midst of this tension, he does something else extraordinary. He institutes what Christians now call the Lord's Supper, or communion.
He takes the bread, the unleavened bread of Passover, gives thanks, breaks it.
And says, "Take and eat. This is my body."
Then the cup, gives thanks again, offers it to them.
Saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins."
Wow. These actions, these words, they completely transform the meal, don't they? It's not just remembering Egypt anymore.
No, it becomes about him, his sacrifice, establishing a new covenant, he says, in his blood, for forgiveness. That's huge theologically.
Absolutely pivotal. He's directly linking his impending death to the forgiveness of sins.
And then he adds something else, a look forward.
Right. He says he won't drink wine again until he drinks it anew with them in his Father's kingdom.
So even then, there's this hint of future reunion, future celebration, but in a different reality almost.
A kingdom reality. And then what do? They sing a hymn?
Even after all that intensity, the betrayal revealed, the new ritual, they share this moment of worship together.
It's a brief pause, maybe. A moment of shared faith before they head out to the Mount of Olives, where things will escalate again.
Okay, so they arrive at the Mount of Olives, and Jesus hits them with another prediction.
This time, it's about all of them. He says, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me.
And he quotes scripture, doesn't he, from Zechariah.
I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered." It reinforces that sense of this isn't random, it's foretold, part of a plan.
It really emphasizes the isolation he's about to face, doesn't it? If even his closest followers will scatter.
It speaks volumes about, well, human weakness in the face of real danger.
But Peter, typical Peter, he won't have it.
No way. He speaks up immediately. Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. Very emphatic.
He even says, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. Strong words.
And the text says the other disciples all said the same thing, a united front, seemingly.
You can see their loyalty, their commitment in that moment. Maybe a bit naive about what's coming, perhaps.
Perhaps. It's easy to say things before the pressure hits, isn't it? Overestimating our own strength. It feels very human.
But Jesus' response to Peter is specific and chilling.
He singles Peter out. "Truly I tell you," he says, "this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.
Wow. Not just you'll fall away, but you, Peter, will deny you even know me 3 times before morning. That's incredibly specific.
It cuts right through Peter's confident declaration, leaves no wiggle room, just lays out the stark reality Jesus sees coming.
So the weight of all this must be immense. They then move on to Gethsemane.
A place they knew, an olive grove. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John a bit further in with him, telling the others to wait.
And he starts to feel, well, the text says sorrowful and troubled, deeply distressed.
He tells the 3, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me."
You can just feel the agony in those words, the sheer emotional weight. He's asking his closest friends for support.
It's a moment of profound human vulnerability, isn't it? Despite everything else, he needs his friends. His description of his state, overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, it conveys this incredible inner turmoil.
And he goes off a short distance to pray.
3 times he prays essentially the same thing. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me."
This cup, it's usually understood as the suffering he's facing, right? The crucifixion.
Yes, the agony, the separation, the death. He asks if there's another way. But then
Each time he concludes, "Yet not as I will, but as you will." That surrender.
that submission to the Father's will, even knowing the cost. The repetition of the prayer just hammers home how intense this struggle is for him. But ultimately, he aligns himself with that divine purpose.
And what happens when he goes back to Peter, James, and John?
He finds them asleep every time.
He even asks Peter, "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" There's a sadness there, isn't there?
Definitely. But also understanding, maybe. He adds, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He gets their human limitations.
It's such a relatable moment, that struggle. Even amidst these, cosmic events, their exhaustion versus his agony.
Their failure to stay awake really underscores his isolation, though. They couldn't fully enter into his Gethsemane moment.
So after the 3rd prayer, he comes back, finds them asleep again, and his tone changes.
Yeah, he says, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come. The Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners.
Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. The time for prayer is over. It's time to face it.
There's a finality, a resolve there. He's ready.
And right then, Judas appears.
Just as Jesus finishes speaking. And he's not alone. He's got a large crowd with him.
Armed.
Yes, swords and clubs. Sent by the chief priests and elders. It's an official arrest party, essentially.
And Judas has arranged a signal. A kiss.
Chilling, isn't it? Using a sign of greeting, of friendship, as the marker for betrayal.
He goes up to Jesus, says, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kisses him.
The intimacy of it makes the betrayal even more shocking. Such a breach of trust.
And Jesus' response.
"Friend," he says, "do what you came for." Almost resigned. Accepting.
Then the crowd moves in, they seize Jesus, arrest him, and there's a moment of violence.
Yes, one of Jesus' companions, the text doesn't name him here, though other gospels suggest it was Peter, pulls out a sword.
And strikes the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. A flash of resistance.
Understandable, maybe. Fear, panic. But Jesus immediately shuts it down.
"Put your sword back in its place," he tells him, "for all who draw the sword will die by the sword."
And he makes that point again about divine will, doesn't he? Saying he could call on his Father for legions of angels.
More than 12 legions. But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled? It has to happen this way.
He's consciously choosing non-resistance, aligning himself with what he sees as prophetic necessity. It's about a different kind of power.
He then turns to the crowd, challenges them.
"Am I leading a rebellion," he asks, "that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me?"
Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you didn't arrest me. He highlights the injustice, the absurdity of this nighttime raid.
It exposes their methods, doesn't it? Treating him like a dangerous criminal when his ministry was public and peaceful.
And then the narrative adds that crucial line, but this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled.
That recurring theme. Divine plan over human chaos.
And immediately after that, the disciples.
All of them. They desert him and flee, just as he predicted.
Utterly alone, the scattering of the sheep, heartbreaking.
Profoundly isolating. Fulfilling his own words on the Mount of Olives.
So Jesus is arrested, abandoned. Where do they take him next?
To Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders, basically the Sanhedrin, the Jewish high court, were already gathered. They were waiting.
And Peter. He didn't flee completely.
No, Peter follows, but at a distance. He ends up in the courtyard of the high priest's house, sitting with the guards.
He wants to see the outcome, but he's keeping his distance. Torn between loyalty and fear, you think?
Absolutely. He's still there, hasn't totally run, but he's definitely afraid of being identified. It puts him in a vulnerable spot.
Inside, meanwhile, the Sanhedrin is trying to build a case.
They're actively seeking false evidence against Jesus, looking for a pretext to sentence him to death. Their minds seem already made up.
But they're having trouble finding anything that sticks.
Right. Even though many false witnesses come forward, their testimonies aren't agreeing. It highlights how weak the actual case against him is. They're struggling to fabricate a legitimate charge.
Until finally 2 come forward with something.
They claim, he said, "I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days."
A distortion of something he might have said, perhaps, but they twist it. And the high priest jumps on this.
He stands up, confronts Jesus directly. "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remains silent.
Until Caiaphas pushes him, puts him under oath.
"I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." This is the direct question, the ultimate charge.
And this time, Jesus answers.
"You have said so." Affirmative. And then he adds that powerful declaration.
"But I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven."
That's it. That's the moment. By claiming messiahship and divinity in this way, referring to Daniel's prophecy, he gives them exactly what they need.
Blasphemy in their eyes.
Precisely. The high priest tears his clothes, a dramatic, symbolic act of outrage. "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy."
And he asks the council for their verdict.
And it's unanimous. He is worthy of death.
The trial, such as it was, is over. And then the abuse starts.
Horrific. They spit in his face, strike him with their fists, others slap him.
And mock him, right? "Prophesy to us, Messiah, who hit you?"
Utter degradation.
It shows the depth of their rejection and the complete breakdown of justice.
Okay, so while this horrific scene is unfolding inside, what's happening with Peter out in the courtyard? Peter's facing his own ordeal. He's just sitting there trying to blend in.
But he gets recognized.
3 times.
Yeah.
First, a servant girl sees him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," she says.
And Peter.
Denies it, right there in front of everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Then he moves towards the gateway, maybe trying to slip away.
And another girl sees him, tells the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth."
And his reaction.
He denies it again, this time with an oath. "I don't know the man."
More emphatic, more desperate.
And the third time.
A little while later, some bystanders come up to him. "Surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away." They recognize his Galilean way of speaking.
Now he's really cornered.
And he completely loses it. He begins to call down curses, and he swears an oath again. "I don't know the man." Utterly emphatic denial.
And right at that moment,
Immediately, a rooster crows.
just as Jesus predicted.
The sound hits Peter. He remembers Jesus' words. "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.
What does he do? He goes outside. And he weeps bitterly, the crushing weight of what he's done, the realization of his failure, his betrayal.
Such a powerful human moment of failure and regret.
Absolutely. The contrast between his earlier bravado and this breakdown is stark.
So looking back, we've covered this incredibly intense, rapid sequence of events. The foreshadowing, the plots, that symbolic anointing.
Judas's deal, the Last Supper with all its meaning, the predictions of abandonment, and Peter's denial specifically.
The agony in Gethsemane, the arrest, the chaos, the so-called trial before the Sanhedrin, the condemnation.
And Peter's own painful trial by fire in the courtyard, ending in those bitter tears. It all happened so fast. The tension just ramps up relentlessly.
It really does. And you see all these human elements clashing, don't you? Loyalty, betrayal, fear, faith, despair, conviction.
Absolutely. These timeless themes are playing out in this very specific historical context. Human drama is just as powerful as the theological significance.
Exactly. Which makes you wonder, as you process all this, looking back at everything from the initial prediction to Peter's weeping, what single moment feels like the biggest turning point? The one that, for you, really sealed Jesus's fate or holds the most weight?
That's a tough question. So many moments feel pivotal.
It is tough.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, what resonates most deeply? What moment stands out? That's definitely something worth mulling over.